You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good and the bad. Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Nazir bin Nazir from OutstandingMuslimParents.com. Here, excited today with Huda TV hosting this episode of Outstanding Parents. Of course, this is the zone where we encourage you to be outstanding, where we won't settle for being average or anything like that, because everyone knows that average is nothing but the top of the bottom of the top. Okay? And today, subhanAllah, is a very serious topic. Today, we're going to talk about the dangers that really lie ahead for our daughters, our young women. Okay, and we'll mention a few. However, we have to be vigilant in this area, especially with our baby girls, because they are being hunted. They are being hunted by different programs, by a number of different things. Okay, and one syndrome that they're being hunted by is the princess, or the Disney princess, to be in particular, about what's really going on. Nevertheless, let me slow down. This is important. I want you to pay attention and take action if you have daughters, and even if you have sons, to pay attention. Okay? Number one, programming happens with our children, with us or without us, with our knowledge or without our knowledge. Let me give you some examples of early childhood programming. I used to get up before there, of course, was the internet, before there was TiVo and DVR to record television programs and watch them anytime you want to watch them, like we have nowadays, or watching them on devices. We didn't have any of this stuff. So I used to have to get up early in the morning, especially on the weekends, and watch cartoons. Well, when I would get up early in the morning to watch cartoons, one famous show is called Bugs Bunny. And some of you probably know about the character Bugs Bunny, right? Well, I remember a number of different episodes. I remember maybe I was 5 years old, and I wondered why when Elmer Fudd, who was a hunter, he was hunting rabbits, okay? But I felt difference when I saw Bugs Bunny dressed up like a woman trying to seduce Elmer Fudd. Now, why would Bugs Bunny be cross-dressing? I knew that he wanted to get away from being hunted, but they're actually planting a small seed at that time of homosexuality. See, programming is going to happen with or without our knowledge. So now as I look back at it and I see the huge promotion consistently going on throughout the West of homosexuality, I see where those seeds were planted. I used to watch Bugs Bunny, who used to cross-dress frequently to get away from hunters or whatever other reason, even used to kiss them. You know, subhanAllah, we need to stay away from this type of thing. All right, Woody Woodpecker did the same thing. Lots of cartoons back then did it, and they thought they did it in a subtle fashion. Be aware, but more importantly, be aware of these things. So we need to begin conditioning and programming our children early. 2, 3, 4 years old. Do not wait for this child to go from 2, 3, 4 where they're impressionable. Allah Ta'ala says He created us from clay. We know that clay, when it's wet, at the beginning stage, you could mold it, and you could spin it, and you can do a number of different things with it. However, when it begins to dry out, it gets hard, and you try to manipulate it, you can break it and crack it. We know that when our children are young, very young, it's when their brains and their ideas are going and growing very fast. They don't have any likes when it comes to fashion. SubhanAllah, you should see what we can put on babies. We can put whatever we want to on babies. Clothes could be 18 different colors, be polka dots and rainbows and mismatch. It doesn't matter. The child does not care. They have no sense of any type of identity or any type of fashion. That's when we need to start. That's exactly when we need to start. When my daughter was about 2 to 3 years old and she was playing with one of her her mother's khimars. She put it on her head. She was crawling under it. And, we just praised her, and she liked it because she was trying to imitate her mother. Then she got older, she put it on. Well, alhamdulillah, it looks so beautiful. You encourage at young age. See, one of the most despicable things I heard when it comes to putting on the khimar and starting to work with hijab, which is not just a piece of cloth over your hair, that's just the khimar. Hijab is the entire covering, and men have hijab and women have hijab. Nevertheless, it's despicable to see when people think that once you become of age, once you become a woman, now it is fard for you to cover your awrah properly and stuff. Now you must wear this, right? Allah Ta'ala dictates it's in Quran. Well, when you wait till they're that age and then you want to spring it on them after they already have a sense of style, after they're all up into their hair and they like it to be seen and they have this fashion. Women are beautiful, alhamdulillah. But if they don't develop that, if you're not working on developing that hayat and keeping that hayat early, then it's going to be harder as that clay hardens up. So the time to start is early. It's not, you don't want to wait until your child is 7 to begin teaching them how to offer salah. Why wait till they're 7? If you're offering salah, they see you praying, they're going to imitate after you. My children, no more than 1 year old, they would get down in sujood and stuff. They didn't do much properly, but they got down in sujood and would look up at, they were trying to offer salat with what they knew because they would imitate. Now, it's not mandatory. You don't have to get them up 2, 3, and 4 years old. But when they come around and you encourage it, and guess what? You also have the hugs and the kisses afterwards. They're going to rush to salat. It creates that fondness. There's a whole science to what we're doing at Outstanding Muslim Parents because we want you to be outstanding. We don't want you to be average. If you want this next generation to raise up strong, to hold on to their deen, then we have to start early. We have to be aware of programming. We have to know what other people are trying to put in our children's heads and in their hearts because our children are developing a disease of love for jahil. So, with our daughters, we start early, as well as with our sons. But today, right now, we're talking about the daughters in particular. All right? Now, some of the cross-dressing homosexual cartoons also goes up into this huge agenda of homosexuality. Recently, the current president of America right now, at the time of this recording, is Obama. Well, Obama came out and said, he endorses gay marriage now. He supports gays and homosexuals' rights to be married, same-sex marriages. A'udhu billah. So he's endorsing with his political power the same crime that happened during the time of Prophet Lut alayhi salam. We know, and we're told in the hadith, during the last days, this will be openly practiced. But he says he endorses it. He endorses it. He wants to push that agenda. Really? How does that affect us? Well, we Muslims, you can't change Islam. They can play games with the other religions if they want to. They can have gay and homosexual individuals marrying individuals all day in their religion, but not in Deen al-Islam. Nah, not at all. It's not going to ride. We know what happened in Philistine. We know what happened in Sodom. We know what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. We know the story. We know how the angels lifted it up and slammed it down. It's the deepest part of the planet right now, one of the miracles of Quran. Shortly after Obama said that mess, what happened? The NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, came out and they said now they consider homosexuality and gay marriage a civil right. A civil right. A'udhu billah. This large organization that talked about civil rights against black people and voting and a number of other common civil rights for people comes and says now the behavior of homosexuals is a civil right. Wow. A'udhu billah. What are they pushing on our children? What's up with the skinny jeans on these boys? Skinny jeans for boys and there's writing on the butt in the back? It draws your eyes there? Really? Come on. If you're a parent, you don't recognize this. You don't recognize that the jeans and pants that they're making for men are like women. They're designed by men that want to be women. They have low rider pants for men. Why does a man need something that low rides on his waist? What is that? That's not manly. That's not masculine. That's not from Islam. These are subtle things that make all the difference in the world, but we must be aware of it. So I'm pointing out just some small things as we're moving along on the path to being outstanding parents. Because if we're not aware, then we can fall prey to it easily. And if we as parents aren't aware to it, what about our children? What hope do they have to skate past it? All right? If we don't have their best interest in mind. If we're not taking action, somebody else is taking action. If we don't have a plan for them, they're going to become part of somebody else's plan, and we may not like it. We may not like it. So the same programming that happened with the homosexuality was the same thing that perpetuated the same racism stuff. The same thing that happened, the same Bugs Bunny episodes, he would have little Sambos on there. Black faces, big lips, eating crazy watermelon, looking extra stupid. Racist as ever. No different than they did with the Japanese making them run around with looking like monkeys and having tails. Same things to any enemy, anybody who is a non-white American or WASP. Okay, this is media programming here. And I'm talking to you in particular about your young children coming up to preteen and your teenagers. Because many of them, they don't know the difference. They don't know how they're getting attacked. They don't know how these billboards with these anorexic, heroin addict looking individuals are being promoted as beauty. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. That's not beauty, that's sickness. And the women that are being chosen as these models are being chosen by men that are homosexuals, by men that don't like ladies, where they have boy-cut pants for women. Oh, the women want man-cut pants. Maybe it's because the men who are putting these women in clothes are clearly homosexual, like that's okay. And these seeds have been planted in design shows, in cooking shows, where homosexual men are teaching women on how to do things. Come on. We have to be aware and be aware. So inshallah ta'ala, as we come back, we're going to talk about another syndrome that is attacking our children. Stay tuned, because again, this is very important for our girls in particular, and you as an outstanding parent. Be back in a minute, inshallah ta'ala.
Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Welcome to another live edition of Hada Tonight. This program provides some of the latest news and information from around the Muslim world, and also discussions about topics that are important for Muslim life.
Brothers and sisters, the Islamic perspective on divorce. It's an outlet which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal for any relationship that has gone sour or an abusive relationship. But this principle of divorce has its rules and has its procedures.
For our first news item for the news segment tonight, we're going to go to the United States, the state of Kansas, the Muslim community there in the United States, the state of Kansas. The city is Kansas City.
Is communication. In order to communicate, you have to make sure that exactly you tell or you told the other or the partner the real thing about yourself.
Tonight we're going to talk about, inshallah, Abdullah ibn Abbas. And what I wanted to start off with, you know, we all know that he was very young when the Prophet ﷺ passed away. So let's start from the beginning, from his youth.
Time is very important and precious. Many of us in our youth and the Muslim Ummah doesn't know the value of time. And even if we think we know, sometimes we face difficulty and challenges understanding and managing your schedule on a daily basis.
Oh, how I love you, Mom and Dad.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back. Well, the syndrome I want to discuss now is called, well, I kind of named it the Disney Princess Syndrome. The Disney Princess Syndrome. Now, every little girl, or at least in the West, they're told, oh, be a princess, and they hear stories of Snow White and Pocahontas and Mulan and all kind of other princesses, the Frog Princess girl, whatever her name is, and so on and so forth. Well, interestingly enough, this really paints a picture of a hopeless, helpless, weak woman that has to depend on a man. Excuse me. Yes, the West is very sexist. I think women get paid about 69 or 71 cents per dollar every man gets in the same position, and they don't get promoted enough. They have never had equal rights. When it came to voting, it's less than 100 years they finally have equal rights. This is part of what we're dealing with. Alhamdulillah, Islam came and gave our women justice over 1,400 years ago, rights to own property, run their business, and so on and so forth. But the issue we're dealing with now is this princess syndrome, where you have to be rescued by a prince, likely a white guy that will come and kiss you and make things better and take you off to live happily ever after. Is that what we want for our daughters? Some guy to just come save them, take them off our hands, and live happily ever after? Where does that happen at? Yeah, exactly. Just in fairy tales, right? But when they push this princess syndrome, this helpless woman having to be dependent on this man, having to kiss some stranger, they're encouraging the type of behavior that is not allowed in Islam. The disobeying of the father and disobeying of the mother and running off in the name of love that they can't even define. No two people can really agree on the term or its meaning of love in this fairy tale land. These are attacks. They want to look like them. You see Snow White with her chest out, just a lot of different things. When you see and you look at these individuals, I mean, I'm currently filming in a place where you can still go in and it's promoted in stores where they talk about be white. There's a package called Be White. Get yourself whiter. Crazy, right? Self-hatred. Continuously pushing these small seeds, but these seeds grow and flourish into something else. So we must be able to weed our garden. Surely a garden does not need to be planted with weed seeds. You have to plant your garden, protect your garden from the weeds that will grow anyway. If you do not garden, if you don't nourish your garden, if you're not pruning and stuff, right, then weeds are going to grow. Weeds are going to be there, so it's our responsibility to remove them, to protect against them. So, ways that many times we inadvertently confuse our daughters as parents. Well, number one, if the mothers and women are not dressing properly in public. One, we know the Islamic principles of dress is, number one, is first to cover the awrah. First to cover the awrah, which is basically the whole woman's body. Number two is for comfort and to protect from the elements. The third thing is for beauty. So when a Muslim woman is dressed, she covers the awrah, what's required by Allah Ta'ala in Islam. Then she does it for comfort and to protect against the elements, the sun, the rain, the hail, the snow, so on, right? Then the third is for beauty, where it's the exact opposite in the West. In the West, they're just for beauty first. So it's not uncommon to go in the wintertime when it's raining and snowing and sleet outside, but you see a woman in a skirt and stockings, or you see them walking around in heels and they hurt so bad that over time they take their heels off and they walk with their heels because they're in such pain to impress a man, to be a toy for a man. We need to protect our daughters from this. They dress for beauty first, then the elements, possibly, then they cover their awrah. All right? Those are not our values. Ours say the awrah, then the elements and comfort, then for beauty. Okay? We have to be careful of it. Now, if we also inadvertently disempower our daughters in particular, when they only hear about women's issues from men, or when discussing marriage and obedience to the men. What happened to talking about the great women scholars of the past? What happened to talking about how the companions used to come to Aisha radiallahu anha and learn from her? What about those times? What about the early scholarship in Islam that was run by women, the many different masajid and schools, madrasa that they established? If the only time our women and our girls and our daughters hear about the women in Islam, it's about obedience or it's about marriage. Though those two are important, those are not the only two areas that women have added value to Islam in. You know, do they know about barakah? Do they know who breastfed the Prophet ﷺ? Do they know how she served him in her life? They didn't even know she's Habashi. She's from Ethiopia. She's a black woman. I mean, we know that there's classism, a lot of racism, asabiyya that still exists, but the Prophet ﷺ said to leave it, it is rotten. So we have to watch out for these things for our girls, right? So another thing is waiting too long. Like I just talked a moment ago, waiting too long about teaching the virtues of Islamic dress. When you want to wait till they're a teenager and it's mandatory that they wear it, they become a woman, their body has changed, and then you want to change up some stuff, they've already have their concepts and their ideas and their fashion sense has already been established. But if you get it before it happens, it's a lot easier. After it happens, now we have to go back into some of the belief strategies that we put out. Now we have to get into the pleasure and the pain principles. Now we have to be able to articulate why and how they should be doing something and being able to show them the pain. That's a lot more difficult than putting a beautiful khimar on your daughter, making sure you're dressed properly as a woman, making sure as a man, you're making sure that your family is doing what they're supposed to do because you know you're that shepherd. And you're responsible for your family members. So you have to be a man that is strong enough to recognize that al-wala wal bara, our loyalty and allegiance is to Allah. So no matter how sweet the food is, no matter how sweet the woman is, no matter how good or brushed up they are, we're not going to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to obey the women. No, we encourage the women to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should be encouraging us the same as we encourage them. All right? Because the strength of our ummah lies upon strong leadership. And leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So with that being said, men have a strong responsibility in this too. Into lowering your gaze, to showing that beauty lies in obedience to Allah. We know the principle in Islam. There's no obedience to the creation and disobedience to the Creator. And knowing that, our women must dress properly. Now, that doesn't mean because a woman dresses properly that everything else is okay. Her mental could be messed up. And I see this a lot. There's arguments about, oh, you know, I'd rather talk with sisters who aren't covered, aren't doing this, than a sister who is covered because she's participated in so much ghiba or so much gossiping and backbiting and bad manners and bad adab. You know, and neither of those two situations are the masses, if you will. You know, yes, there's sisters that are covered properly that have bad adab. There's sisters who are not covered properly that should be covered properly, but because they're not, that's also bad adab. It's disobedience to Allah. So there's a conflict. You can't have good adab and then at the same time you're disobeying Allah, you know, clearly and openly. You know, it really doesn't work. We are not the ones to decide what good behavior is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His Messenger displayed what good behavior is. Aisha radiallahu anha said He's the walking, talking Quran. So what He did, we look to Al-Mu'mineen for the women. We look at the women scholars early days. We relate these stories to our daughters. We relate the powerful stories. And when we look at powerful women, we look at Khadija radiallahu anha. How did she come to marry the Prophet ﷺ? How did she send her sister to go see what's going on? How come he's not married? What's the deal? SubhanAllah. We have these ample examples, but we act as though we just want to perpetuate this same myth that our women, you know, really can't do much. They can cook and clean and take care of stuff at home, which, alhamdulillah, is important. And raise a family, which is the most difficult job. However, we must empower and equip our girls to be leaders so they attract strong men. And we must attract strong men of this ummah if you want to attract somebody that's going to raise and continue to grow a family that is outstanding. You want to be average? Don't worry about anything I said. You want to be outstanding? That goes right back to understanding the circumstances that's going around and making sure you have Islam in your home, in your heart, and it's around you. And we're starting it when they're young. If we missed that time, maybe we weren't Muslim when they were young, so now they're older. Well, we have to do more work then. We have to break in, talk about the beliefs, find out what the motivations are, getting to the core. And we have to use that celebrity as that role model. We have to be the role model, right? Absolutely. We have to be the confidant. This is why this is X versus Y. This is how we do this here in Islam. This is why we do it. When we look at people in Jahiliyyah before Islam and see how they were and how they acted and how they partied and they kicked it and they drank, made tawaf naked and they did poetry like rap and all that stuff today, we can compare and contrast to today's society and show the ultimate end of the people who did not accept Deen al-Haq. Right? We have that opportunity. Well, alhamdulillah. Then we have to use those strategies to get through to their heads because that clay has become harder. So, subhanallah. Now, again, fathers need to be men. Allah Ta'ala tells us clearly in Quran to save yourselves and your families from the fire whose fuel is men and stones. Allah Ta'ala again tells us clearly in translation what it mean. Save yourself and your family from the fire whose fuel is men and stones. May Allah Ta'ala make us successful in that effort, in implementing these different strategies, and staying close and seeking the help of Allah Ta'ala, because surely only by Allah Ta'ala's mercy can we be forgiven and granted Jannah. Okay, so what I want you to do, inshallah, I want you to listen to the notes. I want you to read your notes that you took today and listen to what it's saying to you and take action on some of these strategies. Because verily, this is part one of the dangers our daughters are facing. But I want you to go to outstandingmuslimparents.com/daughters. outstandingmuslimparents.com/daughters. Get the worksheet that we have designed for you. Learn a little bit more about the syndrome and put some action strategies in place for your baby girls. And if you don't have any baby girls yet, you have some teenagers, put these things in place and take action, inshallah. And inshallah ta'ala, you got some good stuff today. Remember, don't just take this intellectually, because a wish changes nothing, but a decision changes everything. We appreciate you being here and sharing with us. I'm Nazir bin Nasib signing off. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ma'asalam.
My world was crumbling down, and you tried your best to shelter me from the coming of the storm. You opened my eyes to see that all hope was not gone. You held me in your arms and wiped away my tears. Not even in a million years can I ever repay you for what you've done for me. You were there when I felt that there was no place for me. You were there to show me how to truly believe in the miracle of creation, in the good